It's about 5:15 according to my phone. This is December 29th, 2021, and this is the Town of Concord Personnel Board. I'll call a meeting to order, and I will call out the roll call. Nancy Crowley.
Present.
Jim Richardson.
Present.
And Bill Marachek, yes. So we have our quorum and we can proceed. The first item on the agenda is the Recreation Incentive Program proposal. And our objective tonight is simply to discuss any questions or concerns or anything that we want to communicate to the Recreation Department in regards to this proposal, which we were presented at our last meeting. I've had a chance to frame some questions, and I don't know if, but I'll leave it to Nancy and Jim. Would you like to go first and with any questions or concerns or points you'd like to make, or would you like me to go ahead and then you can comment on those?
Yeah, I'd offer you to start.
Okay.
Bill?
Jim, are you okay with that, or?
I am. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I read through it and I thought it was very well put together and presented, but yeah, certainly go ahead, Bill.
Okay. Well, I don't think, Amy, do we have the opportunity to have what I sent up on the screen or not?
Sure, I can do that. I
Thank you.
believe I can share my screen. Let me check.
Might be a little easier.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. All right. So this is actually going to be, I think, a little bit easier way to bring up the points, the questions that I had. You know, basically, I agree with Jim that this has been well thought through and something which sounds to be would be a valuable program to have. But I do have, as part of sort of, I guess, the due diligence on our part, the first question I had is what's meant by that last bullet. What I did in this regard was to sort of frame questions. I was not interested in passing judgment on any particular item because the Recreation Department and the staff are much more knowledgeable about their needs and about their environment and their organization. So I'm just sort of critiquing this from afar, obviously, and I just wasn't sure what was meant by this last bullet. Now, I'm not interested in necessarily us going through and trying to figure that out, but this is the purpose of this is just simply to record and what, in fact, I had as questions. Amy, did you have a?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, just for everybody, that when Bill and I talked earlier, we were going to gather the questions at this meeting to relay because the rec director is on leave and would need to give some input. So rather than trying to answer everything in a dialogue back and forth tonight, we thought we'll gather the comments, the questions, the reactions, we'll relay those and then come back with some response.
Thank you. Right. This particular document has been shared with the Recreation Department already. So this is not, they've already seen this. And if the Personnel Board tonight adds any additional items, then we certainly can communicate that to the Recreation Department. All right, so then we go down to eligibility. And what caught my eye was the words personnel training and or coordinate coach. Coordinator coach. And I said to myself, well, I'm wondering if there's a need to specifically identify which positions qualify. For example, what does coordinate mean in regards to the Recreation Department? A lot of people coordinate, but I was trying to eliminate what I thought were potential issues that could arise. And I said I had the same sort of question with regard to the phrase coach. So who coaches? And I'm concerned that without a definition of who qualifies through job descriptions or job titles, that there could be some confusion. So my point of raising this was simply to hopefully see if in fact the recreation department felt the same or not.
And sorry, I was on mute. I was trying to talk. So I had, I mean, one of the comments that I did have was slightly similar, was similar, slightly different. In that was, is it? I guess the way I read it was that it was the person actually performing in class or instructing in the class, and that, you know, one of the questions I had was, is it applicable to anyone else other than, you know, the instructor itself?
Right.
And it was that word coordinate, right? Because you know, what I really didn't, I assumed, but I didn't see was, you know, if there were, let's say a class is run, are there multiple people that can receive the same bonus simply because they participate in getting the class up and running, or is it specifically to the instructor itself? Which again, my assumption is it was the instructor itself, but it didn't. It wasn't 100% clear to that. I mean, I've attended classes in the past. That's why I ask, right? So, you know, just, you know, people who may do a lot of the registration and coordinate and you know, collect all the money and all that stuff. My assumption is they're not necessarily getting a bonus for that because it's part of their day-to-day job. But the person who's actually instructing would get the bonus. But
I think that's an excellent point. It does sort of echo what I was thinking about, and you know, one possibility will be for those words coordinate coach to be deleted. But anyway, we'll leave it up to the. At this point, I thank you, Jim. That was and thanks, Amy, for adding that in, because I think that helps to emphasize the question area as reflected in that particular section of the document. We then go down to, or Nancy, if you have anything, please chime in. And you know, there's no requirement that you have to. I'm just
Right.
wanting to make certain that you feel included in the process.
Oh, I do.
Okay, so we're going to go down, and Amy, you'll help us here.
Fine.
Okay, so we get to the aquatics and land fitness instructors. And I've got sort of the same points under each of the other instructors, but let's start with this one. Is number of registered class participants is the basis. And then I said to myself, well, what if there's a withdrawal? Somebody withdraws from the program, and how's that managed, and who manages that? And then the bonus amount, I said, well, how was $1 chosen? Is it enough? And based on past participation levels, has anybody calculated various payout sums? And then the follow-on question for me was, well, what was included in the BD Center budget? Because it would seem like whoever is responsible for finances there would have had to place some kind of sum, at least in a pro forma way. So that was the bonus amount. And then we get down to payment schedule. And I said, well, why 60 days? Did you consider a shorter time, for example, 30 days, or maybe the second payroll after the term ends? My concern, I guess, here was 60 days seems like a long time. If this is an incentive plan where people are going to receive a bonus, I think we should try, the recreation department should try to have that payout as quickly as possible for it to be meaningful. Otherwise, I think it loses some of its meaning and significance. Okay, then down we go. The next, the red is there a need to clarify eligibility for a bonus payment in the event an instructor terminates their employment prior to the end of the bonus period? Again, I just thought that could happen. And is this something that should be clarified? Then we go down to, so now we're going to go to the personal fitness and trainers. And it gets the same question about how are withdrawals managed, by whom. Here it's my same point about how is $2 chosen? Is it enough? And based on past participation levels, has one calculated various payout sums and what was included in the BD Center budget. You know, I think that from my experience with incentive plans, that people who are a part of the program, I mean, we're going to refer to the companies I've been with, you know, they're pretty much on top of, okay, so what is this going to mean to me? What am I likely going to be able to receive as a payment? And is it a true incentive payment, or is it something else that's called an incentive payment? So it seems to me that there isn't, we should have some idea as to what the sum is going to be, because I think the employees are going to come up with some calculation of their own, and that may or may not be correct. Maybe the assumptions aren't correct. So then I had the payment schedule again, which is the same comment about why 60 days, and did you consider something shorter? And then we go down to the bonus of $80 per hour small group training, less the employee's base rate. And then again, I said, how was 80 chosen? Is it enough? And then based on levels, what has one calculated various payout sums? And then the same comment about 60 days after the end of the period. Why 60 days? And then I have the same comment here on the top of page 3, which is there a need to clarify eligibility for a bonus payment in the event a personal fitness trainer terminates their employment prior to the end of the bonus period? I see there's a typo in trainer, but okay. All right, then we go down to program instructors. And this one, obviously, somebody's going to have to do some work, because the basis for the bonus is net cash collected. So my question was, who's going to calculate net cash? And does the program instructor, because this refers to program instructors, receive the detail in their payment? Is it intended, does it need to be detailed to any extent as to how the net cash value was determined? Bonus amount, the same comment about how is 70% chosen? Is it enough? The payment schedule, why 60 days? Did you consider a shorter time? That's the same as in the other sections. And we'll flow down. We're nearing the end. Okay, so, and then there's also that same point about, is there a need to clarify eligibility for a bonus payment in the event a program instructor terminates their employment prior to the end of the bonus period? So the other things that came to my mind as I was going through this is, what if there's a disagreement? What if, in fact, there seems to be a difference of opinion about the sum? And so I said, well, maybe disagreements isn't the right word, but so what's the procedure? And to handle that hypothetical situation, and to whom? And is there a period of time that this has to be made knowledgeable to the person who's going to receive these requests for consideration or reconsideration or just questions? I don't think the statute of limitations is a great phrase, but I think you understand what I was trying to do is, how long can this be hanging around? And then somebody, can it be 2 years and they can come back and say, well, gee, obviously there's got to be should be some kind of limit. Then I was thinking about, okay, so you've got a plan. A lot of time and attention has been given to it. So then you come to communication. Communication plan, is there one? And if there is one, I think it'd be nice. I'd like them, the recreation department, to share with us. And if there's not one, then my questions really is it important to have a rollout plan schedule, including who and how the information is disseminated? I don't think this has to be terribly complex at all or complicated. In addition, what if any written documentation should be included? In my experience, it's nice to have something in writing so that people can have a reference point going forward. And is it important to give examples of 1 or 2 payout sums based on previous data or future projections? The reason for that is simply that you can avoid people making incorrect assumptions. And the worst thing that we can do in this regard is to have a plan that isn't received in the way that it's intended to be received. And that many times can be a result of just the lack of communication. So then my last point here, the communication does not need to be incorporated into the formal recreation incentive plan proposal, but it should be determined if a written document is in order. So again, my purpose of this was just simply to help frame some points that I thought were, if I was an employee, if I was even one of the other people on the recreation department that were instructors or whomever, that it just seemed like these were logical kinds of questions. So Nancy or Jim, do you have any comment?
Sorry, I keep being on mute. Yeah, a couple of things. One, your point about the 60-day wait, I think is a good one. I hadn't even picked up on that, but I would definitely say if there's the ability to shorten that, I would agree. There's nothing worse than being eligible for a bonus and having to wait a period of time to collect it. So I think it does, it just sits better with the employee. And again, I don't know sort of the payroll and pay groups within the town. I don't know if it's monthly or weekly or quarterly or whatever, but I would certainly agree that the sooner the better. The other comment I had, I had really only 2 comments, and Bill, you hit on both of them. The only other comment I had, and again, slightly different perspective on it, but in that is including some sort of chart. There are a number of different programs, and then there's a number of different types of instructors. And I do think it would definitely be helpful to sort of lay out in a grid format somewhere so people can easily see the type of incentive program, whether it's a swim or instructor or whatever, with differing amounts. And then, if it's a self-instructor, if there are 2 instructors, if it's shared, whatever that may be, it might be helpful, for the person using it to sort of quickly make that calculation. I think Bill's right? So, everyone knows going in what they can expect. They're calculating in their head, what it should be. And the last thing you want is a discrepancy. Or, I noticed in here there was minimum amounts of participants. It's, the bonuses based upon, or maybe it was the last time we talked. I think one of the incentive programs was, anything above 5 participants, the bonus is based upon. So just sort of having that chart of, you can easily look at and sort of follow of, I'm teaching a swim class, I'm self-instructor, above, 5 participants, the bonus is X or whatever, and you can calculate it. So just, again, it goes to communication, it goes to, a lot of different things, but it's the more the employee can digest it and minimize sort of the questions, I think is definitely worthwhile.
Thank you. Nancy, any?
Yeah, I see some of your things, but I also, tell you the truth, I kind of got stuck on each instructor or each category was the bonus term, which you've already addressed, but also the bonus number and the bonus amount, now maybe that's just me, but like for the first aquatics and land fitness, the bonus number of registered class participants, not including guests and stuff, I just put, well, what is the basic amount of students? In other words, what would be the number that you would expect there? And then the bonus amount, does that cover your basic class? Or does it cover just the new ones that were added on for the incentive? So in other words, does the bonus count everybody in the class or just the number of new people that they got in to get that bonus? So like if Mary had normally 6 people and that's what she normally has, and now she has 9, would she be getting $3? So she get $1 for the new ones, or would she get $9? So, you know, I was kind of looking at that. And I kind of looked at that to tell you the truth. So what is the number when that bonus starts, or does it include everybody in that class? So, and I kind of looked at that as well, particularly in the personal fitness trainers. Like under the bonus amount, it's $2 per training hour sold over 50 hours. So it meant if they had 60 hours, then that person would get $20 extra for that class, while the person with 100 would get more. I mean, so in other words, I just had difficulty trying to figure out who was really going to, how much was she really going to be paid? And overall, I mean, I did go over this a few times. I find it to be really, so this is just me, I find it to be very cumbersome. I found like there were so many different pieces to this. I kept on thinking, who is really going to keep track of this? Is it the person who's in charge of the aquatics and land fitness that does hers? How is she? That's really, you know, it looks on paper like it's a full-time job, and I'm sure it's not, but it just looks and like an awful lot of work. And, you know, I just wondered if there was just an easier way of somehow doing bonuses. Probably not. But just again, you know, the person that had $80 under the applicability for the small group training, once her base pay was taken out, you know, she might, I don't know what she makes, but depending on that, it might be a small amount. So that's really, other than the stuff that you brought up, those are the things that I looked at particularly. I found that the basis for the bonus and the bonus amount needed to have more clarification.
Okay. Well, I think you've raised a couple really good points, especially about the at the beginning where the instructor brings in has 3 new people in a class of 9. Is it $3 or is it $9? So I think that is the point that needs to be clarified. And I think you're right in terms of tracking. I don't know to what extent, you know, an Excel spreadsheet, I guess, can be created, and somebody's got to put in the data, and has to, you know. And I think it also, you raised the point about, and I framed it a little differently, but you know, are these sums enough? I mean, if we're only going to talk about $10 a week or so forth, that's one thing. If it's 20 or 30, you know, I think it's, so that was where I was hoping that they would take a look at past experience and future projections, and try to see, well, is this a meaningful amount of money that will be a motivator, or and perceived as something which would be very beneficial, or is this going to be perceived differently?
I also thought too, you know, think about it, in January, she may have 6 that normally come. And then all of a sudden she's got 3 or 4 more because it's January and everybody wants to lose weight and get in shape. But then come February, or if the COVID tends to be more so, she may all of a sudden, where she had 3 extra people or 4, she may now have lost them within less than a month, so less than 30 days. And now she's down. So what happens there? Now does she go back to only the $3 extra instead of the $5? So those are things that I think need to be looked at, particularly, I mean, I know that that happens in exercise classes or aerobics and stuff like that. So, you know, we don't, if you're going to do a bonus, you don't want her to suffer because she had people that came, which takes a lot, and now she's lost people. So now does she lose money per se? So those are things I think you really need to think about.
Okay.
So
Thank
I have one more. I didn't pick up on this first time, but something Nancy said flagged it for me as I'm looking at it. So one thing that may need a bit of clarification is, and I'm looking at this specifically on the personal fitness trainers under bullet 2, applicability. It makes mention of the fact that the bonus is paid based upon hours, number of hours spent conducting small group sessions. And I guess the question I would have is, or I guess I would say would need clarification, would be, is that hours on behalf of the participants or hours that the trainer puts in? In other words, if you have a small class of 3 people and you do it for an hour, is that 1 hour or is that 3 hours? Because it's an hour for each participant versus 1 hour for the trainer. So just it may need a bit more clarification in terms of, because it says basis for bonus, number of hours spent conducting small group sessions. And maybe it's, I would assume by reading that, that's the hours that the trainer puts in and not an hour for each participant, but
That's a good question.
maybe worth clarifying a bit.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, Jim, I wrote in hours there. I felt it had to be hours, but maybe I'm wrong. 50 hours or 100 hours. But
Because I certainly, I mean, I would say if I'm conducting it right now, if I have 5 people in the class and I conduct it for an hour, my argument would be, well, that's 5 hours because it's 5 people in an hour apiece.
yeah,
So I think where we're at, Amy, you can certainly correct me here, but you've been able to add some additional points into the document that I sent you. Is that correct?
Yep.
And
Correct.
So that document at this point is ready, unless we have any other comments from the personnel board, is ready to be resent. Is that document that you would send out, can you also copy the personnel board or not?
Yes, it's just reflecting your discussions. What we can't do is have you outside of meetings sending
Right.
information back and forth to each other.
Right,
But-
right, okay. So I think that it's important that at least since you can share that not only with the recreation department, but with the personnel board members, I think that's what I would be hoping we could do. I guess it's appropriate, isn't it, to just see if there's any other comments from any of the parties and people who are listening to this on Zoom? Any of the citizens have any?
Hi, Bill. I'm from the rec department. I just wanted to
Yeah.
give you just based on some of the conversations that have happened, to give you a little bit of clarity of what I know. And full disclosure, like Amy said, I am assuming Anna's role, who was the director, she's on family leave right now. So I apologize if I can't answer all the questions, but I'll answer as many as I can as we go through this. The notes that you had, Bill, Amy sent them over, they're great. We're definitely gonna make some edits there in regards to some of that stuff. To answer some of the questions that came up about personal training.
Actually, can I just pause? I'm not sure if that's what we want to do tonight because we had other things. So I think we were going to gather the information and then let rec come back after considering it. But up to you. I'm not trying to do it. That was just the initial plan. So
No, I think that probably makes sense to, so that the focus of the next meeting would be to devote time to the answers to the questions.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't understand, I guess, I'm sorry.
Well, I think I didn't make it very
All
clear,
right.
Adam, so I didn't make it very clear at all. So let's, we'll do that for the next meeting, and it'll be, we'll be able to be a little bit more thought and time to be able to reflect and make certain we can get them all covered in the next meeting. Okay, Adam, thank you. Any other comments?
Bill, hi, it's Susan. I had a couple of questions that, one was what the policy is for refunds. I was kind of running under the assumption if you sign up for a 6-session class and you only go to 4, that you don't get refunded for those other 2, but I don't know that. The other 2 questions I had were, suppose this is so fabulously successful that people are banging on the doors. Are there maximums for groups? And maybe there ought to be, because the instructor said, I brought in 10 more people, but you can't have 20 in a class, or whatever the numbers are, but just to figure that out. And then the third question is, my understanding is the BD Center is an enterprise fund. So all of the expenses are covered through program fees. Is that correct? I mean, there's no general fund money that goes into the BD Center. And the reasoning behind this is for that item that said net cash and it said cost of using the facility. It's a pretty expensive facility to run, whether there are people there or not. And I was wondering how that was calculated, and whether you have to spread the overhead over the number of hours that there are classes, or, because it makes it, that is probably the most expensive, the utilities for that. And I didn't know what that piece of it was included in deductions from net cash, or the calculation in net cash. That's it.
Okay, that's good. I think that's helpful, and we've just added your 3 points, Susan, to the list that we've already put together, and Jim and Nancy have added theirs. So I think we're in good shape. So I think at this point, unless there's any other comment regarding this particular agenda item, we can move on to the miscellaneous compensation schedule updates. Agenda item 3. And Amy, you're going to lead us through this?
Sure. One moment. Okay. And you all have the revised packet. I sent you one when the internet was down and I couldn't get all of my regular files, and then I sent you an updated version.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first proposal is for Schedule 1. We break the miscellaneous comp schedules into 3 different schedules. The first one that we say is just for general positions. There's only one proposed change on here. We've already approved the increase to $14.25 for the minimum wage, January 1. And so the proposal here is to increase the range for public safety, for school crossing guards to $30 an hour. This is a position that has become more difficult to fill. We've been looking at what the area towns such as Lexington, they pay very well more in this vicinity. And we think that the pay should be more comparable with that of a traffic officer, not equal necessarily to the traffic officer. There's some similarity and some differences in pay, but it makes sense for it to be higher than it is now. So that's the only recommendation on that Schedule 1.
So any questions? So Amy, if I understand correctly, what we're going to need to do is to approve this amendment to the miscellaneous compensation schedule as you proposed, right?
Right, and the board's done it different ways. Sometimes you've taken individual votes on each schedule that's presented. Not every individual action usually, but the schedule of amendments, or you could wait and do this together with the recreation. If you prefer.
I think my sense, Nancy and Jim, if you want to, is that let's put them together.
Yeah, that's fine.
And handle it that way.
Yep.
All right, so Amy, you're going to do the recreation
Sure.
schedule?
Okay. Yep. So this schedule contains quite a number of titles and salary ranges for the positions at recreation only. And the recreation director, Anna McCune, and staff have been taking a lot of time to relook at all of the ranges in light of current employment market, financial situations, what does it take to help fairly pay employees and attract employees into these positions. And so these recommendations come from looking at all of that. Again, she's taking a continual look at everything there. So some of this relates to changes in the miscellaneous, I'm sorry, can't speak anymore. The minimum wage. That's so minimum wage went up 75 cents. So we've moved some ranges as well to keep some differential between levels of positions. And others, again, are just seeing what's happening with other area towns or fitness centers, that sort of thing. They're also preparing for summer hiring of camp counselors. And let's see, there is a section that we did, I'm just summarizing in general here. I can go into any detail that you want, but there was also a section on, sorry, trying to scroll to the right place on my computer. The teachers, we were separating out some of the position titles and breaking down the ranges having to do with which ones are working in the carousel, that program preschool, which is regulated by the state, and which ones are more general after school programs and preschool programs. So there's different requirements related to those. So recreation has asked to separate those titles and ranges out. So that's a general description. Happy to go into any more detail.
I don't have any questions. Nancy or Jim?
No, I'm fine with that.
Yep. Same here.
All right, so we're at the point of being able to move to approve the amendments, plural, to the miscellaneous comp schedule as proposed.
I can make a motion to approve the amendments to the miscellaneous compensation schedule as proposed.
All right. A second, Nancy?
Second, yep.
So we will go around and vote. Jim
Yes.
and Nancy
Yes.
and Bill, yes. All right, thank you. We're now at the point of talking about possible warrant articles for the 2022 town meeting. And when Amy has some points here to make and for us to decide. I mean, what we're going to have to decide is whether or not, well, Amy, why don't you explain the chronology of the time and how the 7th meeting, the date, January 7th, and how that, what we have to do or if we don't do?
Sure. Okay. So let's see. Warrant articles that we're talking about now would be to present for town meeting consideration at the June regular town meeting. And we've been cautious about making little changes in the last few years through COVID, and they've asked to keep articles to, limit articles during the last 2 years. So these proposals are things that would help with both administration and attracting and retaining employees, but the schedule, which you asked for, means that we have to submit any warrant articles in draft form by January 28th, I believe. Again, scrolling around in my computer to the right place. January 28th is when draft articles are due, and then the warrant closes on February 2nd. There is a preview meeting on January 8th that's coming up. It's not the 7th, it's Saturday the 8th, which is where boards and committees have an opportunity to give people an indication of the things that you're thinking about, what you might see on the warrant. And so we have requested time at that meeting so that if you're wanting to speak to any of these things, that can be done. So, Bill, is there more that you want me to go over?
No, I
at
think,
this point?
I think is, so what we have to do is to decide, and Amy will go through the particular leave changes that has she studied, reviewed, and these will need town meeting approval because of the existing personnel bylaw. So that's why we're spending time on doing this. So I think, Amy, why don't you go through the ones that you believe we should consider for inclusion?
Okay. So the first one relates to holiday leave. And so the state of Massachusetts did adopt Juneteenth Independence Day as a legal holiday. Therefore, under the law, town offices are required to be closed on the days that holiday is observed. The law does not address whether employees are compensated on that day. It's just requiring town offices to be closed. And so with town offices closed, we felt it appropriate to provide employees with paid day for that. And so the proposal here is to add Juneteenth Independence Day to this schedule and list that it's on June 19th. Also, in an effort to be conscious of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, we'd like to add a reference to Indigenous Peoples Day. We thought combining it with a slash. When I say we, this is something I've talked with the town manager, Stephen Crane, about quite a bit, and senior managers are aware of it as well. But to reference Indigenous Peoples Day / Columbus Day. Doesn't change what's in the state law, which refers to it as Columbus Day, but it recognizes that it is viewed in different ways by different people. And then while I was there, I just noticed Patriots Day with an apostrophe S, and I believe the appropriate way to list that would be with an S apostrophe. So, so those proposals there, I will note that we've been working on negotiating new collective bargaining agreements with our unions and have included a paid holiday for Juneteenth in those agreements that we've recently been settling. So town meeting has to approve this for the employees that are covered by the collective, by the personnel bylaw, and the town manager can negotiate it with the unions.
Any, before we go on to the next vacation leave payoff, any questions, Jim or Nancy, on the
No,
holiday? Okay.
no, fine with that.
And I'll note, while I was there, I'm suggesting that we look at references to his, her, and gender specific terms, and make them gender neutral. That is another thing that we've recently agreed with all of the unions that we've just been settling contracts with is to go through their entire contract and look for ways that we can use gender neutral terms.
Okay, so we move on to the vacation leave point.
Yeah, so vacation leave. Much of the vacation leave provisions are covered by policy. However, some of it is in the bylaw, and therefore the sections that are in the bylaw can only be changed by a vote of town meeting. And there are some provisions here that we'd recommend come out of the bylaw. It currently, where you can see the strike through that, where it says in the first paragraph under the use and payoff of vacation, it says no vacation time may be taken until an employee has completed 6 months of service unless authorized in advance by the town manager. We've found that we're not really needing that language, and is restrictive and creating more administrative burden, and sends messages to employees that they can't take time off, or it's very difficult to take time off in the first 6 months, where sometimes that's really not the case. Somebody starts and they have a pre-planned summer vacation or a wedding, a family event, those sorts of things. We want to be flexible and allow them to attend to those sorts of things, particularly when they've already earned the time. Sometimes I think in the past there was thought that if an employee was absent for any length of time during their first 6 months, then how could they complete their training and be fully assessed? We don't think that the week or so of time off in a 6 month period is really going to make a difference there. That would be a rare case, and certainly vacation could not be granted if there were, during a particular week, if there was some concern related to a training program or something like that. So we just think that this creates administrative burden and sends a message to employees that's not needed. And then while there, again, I was looking to change a gender specific term. It says she, S/he, and I was trying to reword that in a way that was gender neutral.
And I think that comments, Nancy or Jim.
I just want to ask you, so they don't have to wait 6 months? Do they have to wait 3 months, or can they take their earned time once it's earned anytime they want? I mean,
Through approval procedure. So they're
Right.
still, each department, they have procedures for how they approve vacation. But yes, if it's earned, they could take it once it's theirs, and whatever schedule that might be.
okay, all right.
So to follow up on Nancy's point, Amy. So if a person starts in the second week, they have a 5-day vacation. What amount of time have they earned? And that's hypothetical.
Right now, under our current policy, they would not have earned really any in their first week.
Okay.
That is something that we'd want to look at. Certainly, I don't think vacation would be granted in the first week anyway, even if it was earned. But we do want to look at the accrual, because we do have people that have needs come up early in their employment, and we go through a lot of things to try to cobble up hours or unpaid time and get approval for unpaid time or comp time, whatever it takes to allow for something, if it makes sense.
Okay.
Amy, is there a need for any sort of clawback if in fact you do front them, say, a week of vacation, and then they were to leave, before the full accrual? Do you claw that back at all, or is that just lost?
So we are careful about advancing vacation time. So typically people only use what they have actually earned. We do have some provisions that allow an advance, and when that happens, it's made very clear that it gets special approval that you're being advanced time, and if you were to leave employment when you, before you had earned all of that, you would have to pay back or be deducted from the last check, that sort of thing.
All right, I think we can move on to the bereavement leave section that you have presented.
Okay. Okay, this is a rough draft of an idea. Right now, the bylaw says that up to 3 days of paid leave may be granted by department heads when needed. You know, we would typically find if somebody experienced the death of a spouse or a child, that kind of relationship, that 5 days of leave is not sufficient. I mean, 3 days is not sufficient, but so we think 5 is even a minimum of what might be appropriate. And so we'd like to have the ability to, through policy, adopt a different schedule that would allow up to 5 days, depending on the relationship. The other piece of this is the bylaw says that it's when needed for an immediate family member or household member. And we have policy that defines that. And people obviously define immediate in different ways, but we'd like to expand to provide bereavement leave for relationships such as the child-in-law, sibling-in-law, niece, nephew, aunt, uncle, which we've also sought some gender-neutral terms there. The nibbling and hibbling is what we've found there. But we'd like to be able to provide some time for those other relationships where people, reasonably need to attend to a funeral, that sort of thing. Right now, employees do not receive any paid leave for those relationships in the sample of the up to 1 day. So we have found that it is better to have the details addressed in policy rather than in the bylaw. Years ago, details were in the bylaw, and the language said, you would grant bereavement leave for a parent, a child, a grandparent, that sort of thing. It did not list grandchild, and somebody experienced the death of a grandchild, and everybody felt that that should warrant bereavement leave. However, what's in the bylaw is law, and there was no provision to provide something different than that. It has to go through a town meeting procedure in order to grant bereavement leave for something that's not in the bylaw. And so through the years, language has changed and been made to be more flexible so that we can respond to these sorts of things that weren't predicted when we started a town meeting process. That's why you see that the bylaw language talks more generally and refers to policies, and then the policy gets more specific, and that allows the town manager and personnel board to address needs as they arise.
Right, thank you. Nicely done. Jim or Nancy, any questions?
This may sound silly, but as a grandparent, I'm looking at up to the 5 days. So the spouse, the domestic partner, or the parent. Now, we've already decided it was spouse either or. So does that parent refer to the parent of the spouse? So it would be a grandparent? I can't imagine not being able to, you know what I'm saying?
Right. The way this is written, it's the relationship to the employee. So it's the employee's parent. Grandparent is listed under up to 3 days. We can certainly dive into all of these in more detail, and that would be for policy. It does not need to be part of the warrant article. This is provided as an example of the type of thing that we might want to dive into.
Yeah, but I mean, actually, they kind of answered it, because if it was me, my parent would be a grandparent to the child. So it would include my mother, and she would be the grandparent to my child, so she would be coming. I mean, that's a terrible thing. Do you know what I mean? I'm not making it, I don't want to make a thing out of it. I just was trying to figure out that it probably did include a grandparent because of the way it's worded. I would take it like that.
Okay.
If I was a spouse and that was my parent, that would more than likely be my child's grandparent. So that being my mother, and so it would be covered anyways, I think.
Okay. We
I'm
can
just-
certainly dive into this and make clear language and decide what the right levels are. For the warrant, I think the biggest question is what's the most, what's the standard number of days? It says up to 3 days currently, and the proposal is to increase it
Oh,
up to
right.
5 days.
Right, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. I think it's fine the way it is,
Jim, do you have? any-
No, I have no, I mean, I think that's industry standard.
Yeah.
I've seen anywhere from 1 to 7, but I think typically 3 to 5 is standard. So no, I have no concerns.
So we're at the point really of, there's no vote of the personnel board that's necessary. But we have to decide whether or not on the 8th of January, there should be included, I would be the chair, obviously, in this meeting on the 8th of January, just talking about these, the holidays, vacation, and bereavement leave. I don't have to, as I understand it, have the final language, but just to have a general discussion about this is what we're thinking about. These are the changes that we're thinking about as proposing for the town meeting in June 2022.
Right, that, and we can get some feedback from employees as needed. And then, yes, be working to fine tune a warrant article that would need to be voted by the personnel board before it's submitted as a draft on January 28th.
Right. But at least for purposes of the 8th of January, it's my feeling that I should be in attendance and I should talk about these 3 items as what the personnel board is considering for inclusion in the town meeting of June 2022. Is Nancy or Jim, do you concur with that, or do you have any concerns about that?
No, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think you'll get much pushback from employees.
I think you're probably right. Okay,
It's a
we're on
good
to,
win, so.
we're on to the agenda item number 5, the Personnel Study Task Force. Is there anything, Susan, that's pertinent to just sort of mention at this point, or?
Well, I will tell you that the last time the task force met, the meeting was at 4 o'clock, and select board met at 5 that day. So I was there just for the first half hour. There was some more minor tweaking to the charge, but I can't report on anything that happened after I left. So Amy may have some insight. I'm not sure if she was there.
I was there. There was a good amount of discussion about how to request and obtain information and records from town employees and how to interact with employees and with me. I think that there had been some confusion, misunderstandings, or miscommunications about some of the status related to some requests that I did receive. I had received an email from Paul McCone asking some questions. I replied and with one piece and advised that some of the others weren't weren't readily available, or I'd need to look at them and ask to meet about them. I think there's some, confusion that when there's a public records request, we do often need to talk with whoever's making the request to find out more how we might be able to provide a response that is, something that's responsive to the request. I didn't have anything that I thought was immediately available in terms of what they had asked. And I did send the request on to the town manager because it was going to take some staff time, which is reasonable. And the town manager engaged in a discussion with some select board members to try to address. I think that led to the questions about the charter, or not the charter, I'm sorry, the charge. So there was, this whole thing waiting to have clarification. In the end, the task force chose to withdraw the questions they submitted to me, and they have not yet asked to meet with me. I'd be happy to do that when they're ready. I do think I have information that would be very helpful to them, but I know it's going to be at the right time for them. That I think was that's the main thing that I'm remembering from that meeting at the moment. I don't know if anybody else watched it.
Well, I did, but and I think you've done a good job of reporting what was said. So, Susan, is there a new revised charge for this group that's made public or not?
Yeah, there is, and it was approved at the select board meeting last week. Is that right? Or the 20th? And it'll be in the packet for Monday's select board meeting.
Okay, all right, thank you. I know that Ann Berich is having interview time schedules with people. I spent time with her, I guess it was last week, and we had a really good conversation, and she's a really good listener and certainly is very committed to executing her role on this task force, and is certainly hoping to be able to make some changes and or at least to clarify roles and so forth. But my point is that she's committed to doing what she can along with the other members of the task force to execute the charge. So I'm really pretty comfortable that they're going to be able to come together to provide some thoughts. And obviously, the select board is the one who's the decision maker. They're in a position of making recommendations for sure, and comments and so forth. But I think it's a group that seems very committed to working to a schedule and meeting and moving forward. So I was impressed with that.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments on the task force topic, Nancy or Jim?
No.
Okay. Well, I guess we've got down to number 6, and if there's any public comment that anyone would like to share, now is the time.
Looks like Carlin is raising her hand.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yes,
Bill.
Carl.
Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. Thank you very much for the information. I can see the value of having members of the public be part of a committee that assists the HR department to reach these difficult decisions. And I think your input is very valuable. Keep it up. Thank you very much. That's it.
Right. Thank you. Anyone else have any comment from the public? Okay. Not seeing any. I think we're to item number 7, and I'll accept the motion for adjournment.
Bill, can I just ask,
Sure.
there were some other nights. Amy, do we have other nights that are definite for meetings?
For meetings, yeah, let me
I
take a
have a
look.
question mark on some of them when you asked us to hold them, so I'm just trying to.
Right, thank you, Nancy. I am looking up, so the next one that I have is the 12th. That is a Wednesday. I think that it could make sense then, you'll have had the preview meeting and have had an opportunity to hear some feedback on the warrant articles. So I would think it would make sense to meet then to consider where you're at with that. And then,
Well, we'll have the answers to the questions from the recreation.
Yeah, we
yeah,
have,
I think so, as long as Anna is able to respond by then.
Oh, okay, so it may be too short.
It might be too short, I don't know.
Okay.
She's, so then, and then the other one is the 26th, which is just before the warrant deadline. And you may need that one as well to just finalize the articles. So I think those are the only two that we had as I'm running through my calendar. And at the moment, I'd ask you to continue to plan on meetings then.
on them. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, good question, Nancy. Thank you for raising that up. Okay, I'll accept a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn from the meeting at, I forget the exact time. What do we got? 6:22?
Right. All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. All in favor? Jim,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
and Bill? Aye. All right. Thank you all very much.
All right. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.